Good day! In today's lesson, I will discuss about how to evaluate an author's argument or how to judge an author's argument. So, author's argument is the opinion or belief that he or she wants to persuade readers to believe. Example, death penalty should be legalized in the Philippines, and then the author will tell the reasons. Another example, boys are way better than girls in terms of cognitive intelligence. Then the author will provide details to support his or that statement. Another example, Mobile Legend and TikTok app should be banned in the Philippines. And then the details, so those are examples of an author's argument. I have here ways on how to evaluate the author's argument. So first is you have to identify the issue. What is the issue all about? Is this about death penalty, gender equality, or freedom of the press, and so on? Next is to determine the author's argument. You might ask yourself, what is the author's position on the issue, or what is the author's point of view on that particular issue? Is he pro or anti, and so on? Next is to identify the author's assumption. So it consists of things that the author takes for granted without presenting any proof. In other words, what the author believes or accepts as true and bases the argument on. For instance, the writer is a feminist. Of course, if the issue is about gender equality, the tendency of the author will give much favor to the female contrary to the other genders or sexual preference. And if his or her assumptions are illogical or incorrect, the entire argument will be flawed. Another way to evaluate author's argument is to identify the types of supports. So this is the kind of evidence that the author uses to back up his or her argument. Example of the supports the writer uses are research findings, case studies, personal experiences or observation, examples, facts, comparisons, expert testimony, and opinions. So always remember that an argument without evidence is a total trash. And of course, there are 3 things that will help you in investigating the sources of information used by an author. First is you have to investigate or conduct research about the author. Ask yourself, who is the author of the source of information? Is it William Shakespeare, Bill Gates, Prime Minister of Korea, and so on? And then next, check the background of the author. Is the author expert on that subject matter or issue? Does he have a degree, experiences, attended seminars, and so on? Next is to know the purpose of the author. So sometimes a persuasive text is suspicious. If at the end of the article, the author will persuade you to buy a certain products pertaining to the content of the article. So you must be very careful as well. So some authors will get information available in the internet. So for you to know if his sources taken from the internet are reliable, look at its domain names. So the domain name can give you clue regarding the site's motivation and objectives. So if the link has .com, it means that the domain name is owned by a company. Because the website is owned by a company, keep in mind that there is a business aspect to that website. .edu is more reliable because it means that the website is under educational institution. Next, we have .gov. It is a government-owned website. .net is owned by a network, and those other organizations, the .org are other indicators to whom a page belongs. The next factor to consider in investigating the sources of information is the pieces of evidence to the claims of the author. So here, the supporting pieces of evidence the author presents should be of high quality information that are factual, reliable, updated, unbiased, and comprehensive. So if these qualities are not present in a particular source, it only means that it is not a good source of information. Another way that will help you identify if the source is reliable is in the grammar. If you happen to encounter lapses in subject-verb agreement, that will also indicate that the source is unreliable. Next factor to consider is the publisher or the sponsor of a particular claim. So do not be misled by the impressive names of organizations or advocacy campaigns. So example, a campaign named Education for the Ethnic Tribes advocates to bring education to far-flung areas of Palawan. So they bring in teachers and teach children coordinated with the government and good relationship. But unknown to many people, this organization is sponsored by a mining company who has interior motive, which is to penetrate the community to mine their lands. So, and this mining activity is a threat to the natural resources and environment. So in this matter, you should really evaluate the sources of information or the pages or sponsors. Now, since we're done learning the factors in investigating the sources of information, let's go back to the ways on how to evaluate author's argument. So for number 5, or step number 5, determine the relevance of the support. So ask yourself, is the support directly related to the argument? So if the topic is about divorce, but the author's supporting details pertains to global warming, so see, malayo. So they are not related. So remember, supporting argument should be related, aligned, or connected with the issue or topic. Next, determine the author's objectivity. So ask yourself, does the author present facts and clear evidence in his arguments? He or she must present sources from the types of the supports that we discussed earlier, such as those research papers, case studies, and so on. Next step is determining if the argument is valid. So ask yourself, is the argument logical? Is the argument well-reasoned? Does the argument provide a sound reasoning? Does he has a point? So something like that. Lastly, decide if the argument is credible. So you may ask yourself, is the author's argument believable? Is it convincing? Does it move my mind? Or does it make me do certain action? So those are some of the questions that you may ask. So those are all of the steps in evaluating the author's argument. I hope you've learned something from today. Thank you.